orphan girl in tattered clothes clutches a worn teddy bear as she approaches a police officer named Andrew. With trembling lips, she whispers 2 words that leave him completely stunned. Without hesitation, Andrew calls for urgent backup, setting off a chain of events that would change lives forever. What did this frightened little girl say to Officer Andrew that made him act so quickly? Before we get into this powerful story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this inspiring tale, don't forget to subscribe. The little girl stood trembling on the dark, empty sidewalk. Her tiny fingers clutched a battered teddy bear, its fur worn thin from years of being her only companion. Her name was Emily, though she hadn't heard anyone call her by it in a long time. She couldn't remember exactly how far she had walked, but her aching feet and the growling hunger in her stomach reminded her of how far away home felt if she even had one. The street was eerily silent, except for the occasional rustle of wind in the trash-strewn gutters. She glanced nervously from one shadow to another, her wide eyes filled with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Emily had long since learned to be wary of grown-ups, especially men. In her short life, she had seen the worst of what they could do. Still, the cold gnawed at her tiny body, and the faint sound of a car approaching made her heart race. A pair of flashing lights pierced the gloom, making her freeze in place. She hugged her teddy bear closer, debating whether to run or stay put. Her legs felt weak, and she was unable to decide for herself. The car slowed, its bright headlights illuminating the scared child on the sidewalk. A man in a crisp uniform stepped out. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence both commanding and comforting. The golden badge on his chest glinted under the streetlight, but it was his face that caught Emily's attention. His eyes weren't harsh like the ones she had seen before. They seemed kind. "Hey there," the officer said, his voice soft but steady. "Are you lost?" Emily didn't answer. Her lips trembled as tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to trust him, but trust had always brought pain before. After a long moment, she whispered, barely audible, "Help me." The words felt foreign on her tongue. She had never been allowed to ask for help before. The officer's expression changed instantly. Concern flickered across his face as he crouched down to her level, trying to seem less intimidating. "It's okay," he said gently, keeping his distance so as not to scare her. "My name is Liam. I'm a police officer, and I'm here to help." Liam reached for the radio on his belt, murmuring something into it that Emily didn't understand. She only caught 2 words, urgent backup. The sound made her tense up again. More people? What if they were like the others, the ones who hurt her? Noticing her fear, Liam held up a hand in reassurance. "Don't worry," he said, his voice soothing. "They're good people like me. We'll get you somewhere safe, okay?" Emily nodded hesitantly. Her fingers clutched the teddy bear so tightly it seemed like it might tear. But in Liam's voice, she heard something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Emily stood frozen as Officer Liam slowly knelt down, careful not to frighten her. His gentle demeanor set him apart from the other adults she had encountered, ones who were loud, cruel, or indifferent. But Liam's voice was soft, his eyes warm as he smiled. "You're safe now," he said. "I promise no one is going to hurt you." Emily's grip on her teddy bear loosened slightly, though she remained quiet. Her tiny body trembled as Liam spoke into his radio again. The device made faint beeping noises that made her jump. He noticed and quickly reassured her. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said. "I'm just asking my friends to come and help us. You're not in trouble, I promise." As the minutes ticked by, Emily began to relax just a little. Liam remained by her side, asking questions in a calm, gentle tone. "Do you have a name?" he asked. Emily hesitated before whispering, "Emily." Liam's smile widened. "That's a beautiful name." "I'm Liam. It's really nice to meet you, Emily." His words were simple, but they carried a kindness that Emily wasn't used to. She glanced at his badge, its polished surface reflecting the streetlights. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt like she might not need to run. A second patrol car pulled up, its lights flashing, but its siren silent. 2 officers stepped out, one of them a woman with a kind face. Emily instinctively shrank back, clutching Liam's sleeve without realizing it. "It's okay," Liam said softly, noticing her fear. "These are my friends. They're here to help us." The female officer crouched down, keeping her distance, and smiled. "Hi there, Emily," she said gently. "We're going to take you somewhere safe, okay?" Emily didn't respond, but she didn't pull away either. Liam remained her anchor, and his steady presence made her feel less overwhelmed. As they led her to the second patrol car, Liam spoke quietly to the female officer, his tone serious. Emily couldn't hear their conversation, but she caught snippets. "Something's not right, and we need to look into this immediately." Inside the car, Emily sat stiffly, her teddy bear clutched tightly to her chest. Liam sat beside her, giving her a reassuring smile. "We're going to the station," he explained. "It's a safe place, I promise. You can rest there and we'll make sure you're okay." Go back. The station was bright and bustling, a stark contrast to the dark, empty street where Emily had been found. She shrank into herself as they walked through the main room, her eyes darting around at the unfamiliar faces and loud voices. "Let's find you a quiet spot," Liam said, noticing her unease. He guided her to a small room with a soft couch and handed her a blanket. "Here you go," he said. "This will help you stay warm." Emily hesitated before wrapping the blanket around herself. Its softness was unfamiliar but comforting. Liam returned moments later with a steaming cup of cocoa. "I made this just for you," he said with a grin. "Not too hot, but extra marshmallows. That's the best way to have it." Emily accepted the cup cautiously, her small hands trembling as she took a sip. The sweetness was unlike anything she had tasted in a long time. She murmured a quiet, "Thank you," and Liam's smile widened. "You're very welcome," he replied. As Emily sipped her cocoa, Liam sat nearby, careful not to crowd her. He asked gentle questions, trying to piece together what had happened to her. "Do you have a home, Emily, or someone waiting for you?" Her eyes welled with tears as she shook her head. "It's okay," Liam said softly. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." Emily hugged her teddy bear, her mind swirling with memories of the dark place she had escaped. She wanted to tell him everything, but fear kept her silent. Instead, she whispered the same words she had said before. "Help me." Liam's expression shifted again. His warm smile faded into a look of determination. He gently rested a hand on her shoulder. "I will," he said firmly. "I promise, Emily, we'll figure this out together." Over the next few hours, Liam stayed by Emily's side. He brought her snacks and coloring books, trying to make her feel as comfortable as possible. Occasionally, he stepped out to talk to his colleagues, but he always returned with the same reassuring smile. When one officer approached Liam with a clipboard, Emily listened closely, though she couldn't understand everything they said. "No reports of a missing child matching her description," the officer said quietly. "It's like she doesn't exist in the system." Liam's brow furrowed, and he glanced at Emily, who was now drawing in her coloring book. "Something's off," he murmured. "Kids don't just disappear without someone noticing." Emily could feel the weight of their concern, even if she didn't fully understand it. She looked up from her drawing as Liam returned to her side. "Hey, Emily," he said, crouching down to her level. "Can you tell me anything about where you came from? Anything at all?" Emily hesitated before whispering. "It was a bad place. There were other kids there. We weren't allowed to leave." Her words sent a chill through Liam. He glanced at the other officer, who immediately began making calls. Liam turned back to Emily, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "You're very brave for telling me that," he said. "We're going to figure out where this bad place is, and we're going to help the others. I promise." For the first time, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Liam's words didn't feel like empty reassurances. They felt real. Emily sat in the small room at the station, the warmth of the blanket and the sweet cocoa easing the chill she had carried for so long. Yet the weight of her fear remained. She looked at Officer Liam, who was now seated across from her, his kind eyes watching her carefully. "Do you feel a little better?" Liam asked softly, his tone as gentle as the breeze. Emily gave a small nod but kept her teddy bear tightly pressed to her chest. It was her shield against the world. A small comfort in an overwhelming sea of uncertainty. "You're doing so well, Emily," Liam said with a smile. "I know this is all scary, but you're safe now." The words "safe now" echoed in Emily's mind. She wanted to believe them, but the memories of the place she had escaped, its cold, dark rooms and the shouting voices kept creeping in. She shivered, and Liam noticed immediately. "Are you cold?" he asked, leaning slightly forward. Emily shook her head. It wasn't the temperature, it was the fear. The kind of fear that clung to her like a shadow. Liam didn't press her, instead reaching for a notebook from his pocket. "Would you like to draw something?" he asked, handing her a small stack of crayons. Emily hesitated, but eventually reached out for the blue crayon, her favorite. She began to draw small, hesitant lines on the blank page. As she worked, Liam stayed quiet, letting her feel in control of the moment. Bookmark? Go back. Minutes passed in silence before Emily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard trains at night," she said, not looking up from her drawing. Liam's ears perked up. He leaned in slightly, careful not to interrupt her rhythm. "Trains?" he asked gently. "That's good to know, Emily. Was the place you were in near train tracks?" She nodded, her fingers gripping the crayon tightly. "And there was a red barn," she added, her voice trembling. Liam exchanged a glance with another officer who had just entered the room. The details Emily provided were small but significant. They could narrow down locations and maybe, just maybe, find the other children she mentioned earlier. "You're doing amazing, Emily," Liam said with genuine warmth. "This helps us so much." Emily looked up at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt or insincerity. All she found was kindness. "Will you really help them?" she asked, her voice wavering. Liam placed a hand on his heart. "I promise, Emily. We'll do everything we can to help them." As Emily continued to color, Liam stepped outside to join a group of officers gathered near a bulletin board. Maps and notes were spread out before them, and tension filled the air. "We've got a potential lead," Liam told his colleagues. "A red barn near train tracks. It's a start." One of the officers, a woman named Claire, nodded. "I'll cross-reference that with known reports of suspicious activity. If there's a location matching this description, we'll find it." Liam glanced back toward the small room where Emily sat, her head bent over her coloring book. "She's been through so much," he said quietly. "We need to move fast. I don't want her to feel like her bravery was for nothing." Another officer clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll get them, Liam, for her and all the other kids." Back in the room, Emily had finished her drawing. She held it up timidly as Liam re-entered. "This is the barn," she said, pointing to a red shape surrounded by scribbled train tracks. Liam took the drawing and studied it carefully. It was simple but heartfelt, a reflection of the fear and determination inside the little girl. "This is great, Emily," he said, his voice full of encouragement. "You're helping us so much." For the first time, Emily managed a small smile. It was faint, barely there. But Liam noticed. He sat down beside her, keeping his voice light. "Do you have a favorite color?" "Blue," Emily whispered. "Mine too," Liam said, grinning. "Maybe we should get you some blue walls in your room one day." The mention of a room, her own space, made Emily pause. She had never had such a thing before. The thought was strange, but it warmed her just a little. Over the next few hours, Liam stayed by Emily's side. He didn't ask more questions about the bad place, sensing that she needed time to process everything. Instead, he talked about small, safe topics, the weather, funny stories from his life, and even his favorite childhood snacks. "I used to eat so many peanut butter sandwiches," he said, chuckling. "One time, I got peanut butter in my hair, and my mom made me wash it out with shampoo that smelled like strawberries. I smelled like a fruit salad for a week." Emily giggled softly at the story, the sound like a tiny ray of sunshine breaking through a storm cloud. Liam felt a swell of pride, and he managed to make her laugh. "You're safe here, Emily," he reminded her gently. "I'll make sure nothing bad happens to you." Her eyes met his, and for the first time there was a flicker of trust in them. As night fell, the station grew quieter. Emily yawned, her tiny body exhausted from the day's events. Liam noticed and pulled a small blanket over her shoulders. "Get some rest, Emily," he said softly. "I'll be right here." She hesitated, but eventually allowed her eyes to close. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily drifted into a peaceful sleep, knowing someone was watching over her. Liam stayed by her side, his thoughts racing. He knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but seeing Emily's small smile and hearing her quiet laugh reminded him why he had to fight. For her, for the other children, for the hope that light could shine in even the darkest places. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of the police station. Emily stirred on the couch, blinking against the brightness. Her teddy bear was still tucked under her arm, and the soft blanket that Officer Liam had given her felt warm and comforting. When Liam entered the room, carrying a tray with toast and fruit, Emily sat up cautiously. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "I thought you might be hungry." Emily nodded slowly, her stomach rumbling as she reached for a piece of toast. The sweetness of jam spread across it made her pause. It had been so long since she'd tasted anything like this. As she ate, Liam sat beside her, keeping his tone light and conversational. "Did you sleep okay?" asked. Emily shrugged, her small shoulders barely moving. "That's all right," Liam said with a reassuring nod. "We'll take things one step at a time." Over the next few hours, Liam gently guided Emily through small conversations, never pushing too hard. He asked about her favorite colors, toys, and the teddy bear she never let go of. "What's his name?" he asked, pointing to the bear. Emily hesitated. "Charlie," she whispered. Liam grinned. "Charlie's a good name. He looks like he's been a really good friend to you." Emily nodded, clutching the bear tightly. She was still hesitant to talk about the dark place she had come from, but Liam's patience began to wear down her walls. Later that afternoon, as they sat together with a fresh coloring book Liam had brought, Emily suddenly spoke. "There were other kids," she said quietly, her crayon hovering over the page. Liam stilled, giving her his full attention without interrupting. "We couldn't leave," Emily continued, her voice trembling. "They said we had to stay and work, or else." Her small hands shook, and Liam gently reached out, resting his hand near hers, not touching, but close enough to offer comfort. "You're safe now," he said softly. "You don't have to go back there, but anything you can tell us will help us make sure no one else gets hurt." Emily looked at him, her wide eyes searching his face for reassurance. She took a shaky breath before continuing. "It was a big red barn," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And at night I could hear trains. They were loud. Sometimes the sound made me feel like maybe I could run and catch one. But they never let us go outside." Liam's jaw tightened, his heart aching for her. "You were very brave to get away, Emily," he said. "Can you tell me more about the barn? Was there anything else you remember?" Emily thought for a moment, then nodded. "It smelled funny, like old wood and something bad. There were big men who shouted a lot. They didn't like it when we cried." Her voice cracked on the last word, and tears filled her eyes. Liam's chest tightened, but he kept his expression calm and steady. "It's okay, Emily," he said gently. "You're so brave for telling me this. You've already helped us so much." Liam took the information Emily shared and joined his colleagues in the briefing room. Maps were spread across the table, and officers spoke in hushed but urgent tones. "A red barn near train tracks," Liam said, circling potential locations on the map. "She mentioned the smell, probably chemicals or machinery. That narrows it down further." Claire, the officer who had been working with Liam, nodded. "We've had reports of unusual activity in an industrial area about 20 miles out. There's a train line that runs through it, and one of the properties matches the description." "Let's move quickly," Liam said, his voice firm. "If there are still kids there, we can't waste any time." Back in the small room, Emily sat alone with her teddy bear. The quiet hum of the station felt suffocating as her thoughts spiraled. She remembered the faces of the other children, their scared eyes and trembling hands as they worked. She had tried to be brave, but now, sitting here, guilt gnawed at her. "What if they're mad at me for leaving?" she whispered to Charlie, her bear. When Liam returned, he immediately noticed the sadness clouding her expression. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "What's wrong, Emily?" She hesitated before murmuring, "What if the bad people find me, or the other kids? What if they're mad I didn't stay?" Liam's heart ached at her words. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me, Emily," he said firmly but kindly. "You did the right thing by coming to us. Because of you, we can help those kids and make sure the bad people never hurt anyone again." Her eyes searched his, and though fear still lingered, there was a flicker of hope. As night fell, the station buzzed with activity. Officers gathered their gear, loaded tactical vests, and reviewed the plan in detail. Liam stayed close to Emily, explaining in simple terms what was about to happen. "We're going to the bad place," he said, "and we're going to get your friends out. But I need you to stay here, okay? You'll be safe with Claire and the other officers. Emily nodded hesitantly. Will you come back? She asked, her voice small. Liam knelt down, meeting her eyes. I promise, he said. I won't stop until we've helped them, and I'll come back to tell you everything's okay. She hugged her teddy bear tightly as Liam stood and prepared to leave. The hours dragged on as Emily sat in the station, her small hands gripping Charlie like a lifeline. Claire stayed with her, offering gentle distractions, a book and some toys. But Emily's thoughts were elsewhere. She imagined the other kids still trapped in the barn, their faces pale with fear. She pictured Liam leading the charge, his strong voice shouting orders as the police stormed in to save them. Please be okay, she whispered, not sure if she was talking about Liam, the kids, or herself. Finally, as dawn began to break, the station doors swung open. Emily sat up straight, her heart pounding as footsteps echoed down the hall. Liam appeared, his uniform dusty and his face tired, but his eyes were filled with determination. We found them, he said, kneeling in front of Emily. Your friends are safe now. Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks as relief washed over her. Liam gently wiped one away, his smile reassuring. You were so brave, Emily, he said. Because of you, they're free. You saved them. Emily didn't know how to respond. All she could do was hug her teddy bear tightly and let Liam's words sink in. For the first time in what felt like forever, she believed things might truly get better. The air in the police station buzzed with urgency as the rescue mission entered its next phase. Officers gathered around the large map pinned to the wall, their faces a mix of determination and worry. Red circles marked potential locations near the train tracks Emily had described, and Liam stood at the center, directing the discussion. We've got one location that fits her description perfectly, Liam said, pointing to a spot on the map. A red barn on the outskirts of town, near the freight rail line. It's remote, isolated, and exactly the kind of place these people would use. Claire nodded, her voice steady. I've cross-referenced it with past reports of suspicious activity. There were a few unverified calls about strange noises and late-night deliveries, but nothing concrete. Liam's jaw tightened. It's enough to move forward. We can't risk waiting. Every minute those kids are in that place is a minute too long. Officers moved quickly, gathering gear and reviewing tactical plans. Bulletproof vests were distributed, radios were checked, and vehicles were loaded with equipment. Liam kept his focus sharp, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Emily. Her bravery had brought them this far, and now it was up to him and his team to deliver on the promise he had made, to save the other children. As the team prepared to leave, Claire approached Liam. How's Emily holding up? She asked. Scared, Liam admitted, but she's strong, stronger than I think she even realizes. Claire smiled faintly. She's lucky to have you. And so are those kids we're about to rescue. Liam shook his head. We're the lucky ones. She gave us a chance to make this right. Before heading out, Liam returned to the small room where Emily was waiting. She looked up at him with wide, nervous eyes, clutching her teddy bear tightly. You're leaving now? She asked softly. Liam knelt down so they were at eye level. Yes, but I'll be back. And when I do, I'll bring your friends with me. Emily hesitated, her small hands gripping Charlie even tighter. What if they hurt you? Liam's heart ached at her words, but he forced a reassuring smile. I'll be careful, Emily, and I've got a great team with me. We're going to make sure everyone is safe. She nodded slowly, but her eyes filled with tears. Impulsively, she reached out and grabbed his hand. Promise? She whispered. Liam squeezed her hand gently. I promise. The convoy of police vehicles moved silently through the early morning mist, their lights off to avoid drawing attention. Inside the lead car, Liam reviewed the plan one last time with Claire and the other officers. The main objective is to secure the children and neutralize any threats, Liam said. We'll approach quietly and establish a perimeter before moving in. No unnecessary risks, Claire nodded. We've got this. Despite the confidence in their voices, the weight of the mission hung heavily in the air. Liam glanced out the window, his thoughts returning to Emily and the courage it must have taken for her to escape. That courage fueled his determination to succeed. As the team approached the hideout, the outline of the red barn became visible through the trees. The officers moved with precision, their training evident in every step. Liam motioned for the group to split into smaller units, each taking a different side of the barn. The air was tense, every sound amplified by the silence. Claire's voice came through the radio in a hushed tone. "We've got movement inside. At least 2 adults, maybe more." Liam nodded, signaling for the team to move into position. "On my count," he whispered into his radio. 3, 2, 1. The officers breached the barn doors simultaneously, their shouts echoing through the space. The interior was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of damp wood and machinery. Liam's eyes quickly scanned the room, searching for the children. Near the back of the barn, huddled together in a small makeshift enclosure, were the children. Their faces were pale and their clothes dirty, but their eyes were filled with a mix of fear and hope as they looked at the officers. "We've got them," Claire said into her radio. Liam approached the group cautiously, kneeling down to meet their gaze. "It's okay," he said gently. "We're here to help. You're safe now." One of the younger children burst into tears, and Liam quickly wrapped the boy in a blanket. He motioned for the other officers to start escorting the kids out, keeping his tone calm and steady. "You're all so brave," he said. "Let's get you out of here." As the children were being led to safety, Liam heard a commotion from the far side of the barn. 2 of the perpetrators had been apprehended, and their resistance was quickly subdued by the officers. Liam's jaw tightened as he approached them. These were the people who had caused so much pain, who had stolen the innocence of so many children. But he kept his composure, focusing instead on the kids who were now free. "Make sure they don't go anywhere," he said to one of the officers. "We're going to need answers." Hours later, the children were brought to the station, where a team of social workers and medical professionals awaited them. Emily sat anxiously in the corner, her eyes glued to the door. When Liam finally walked in, her face lit up with relief. "Emily," Liam said with a tired but genuine smile. "We found them. They're safe." She jumped up and ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. Liam held her tightly, his own eyes misting over as he whispered, "You did it, Emily. You saved them." As the rescued children were brought inside, Emily scanned their faces. Her heart leaped when she saw a familiar figure, a girl about her age who had shared the same dark place. "Lila," Emily cried, running to her. The 2 girls embraced, their tears flowing freely as they clung to each other. Liam watched from a distance, his chest swelling with pride and relief. Claire approached him, her voice soft. "You were right about her. She's stronger than anyone realized." Liam nodded. "She's incredible." The events of the day had been exhausting, but as the station quieted down, Liam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Emily's bravery sparked a chain of events that saved not only herself, but so many others. At that moment, Liam realized that his connection to Emily was far more than professional. She had become a part of his life, a part he wasn't ready to let go of. As the sun rose over the town, the police station was a flurry of quiet activity. The rescued children were being checked by medical professionals, their pale faces and trembling hands evidence of the trauma they had endured. Emily sat quietly in a corner, her teddy bear clutched tightly as she watched the scene unfold. Her eyes darted to the entrance every few seconds, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. She hadn't seen Liam since he had left for the raid, and the waiting was unbearable. Finally, the door swung open. Liam stepped inside, his uniform rumpled and streaked with dirt, but his face lit up when he spotted Emily. "Emily," he called softly. She jumped up and ran toward him, her small arms wrapping tightly around his waist. "Did you find them?" she asked, her voice shaky. Liam knelt down, his kind eyes meeting hers. "We did," he said with a reassuring smile. "Your friends are safe now." Bookmark. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks as she clung to Liam, the weight of worry and guilt finally lifting. He held her gently, his hand resting on her shoulder as he whispered, "You were so brave, Emily. Because of you, they're free." The doors opened again, and Emily turned to see the rescued children being led inside. Her breath caught in her throat as she scanned the faces, familiar faces she thought she might never see again. One of the children, a girl with messy blonde hair, spotted Emily and froze. "Emily!" the girl cried, breaking away from the group and running toward her. "Lila!" Emily sobbed, wrapping her arms around her friend. The 2 girls clung to each other, their tears flowing freely as they reunited. For a moment, the horrors of the past seemed to fade, replaced by the warmth of relief and connection. The station staff worked tirelessly to comfort the children. Warm blankets, hot meals, and soft words replaced the cold, fear-filled nights they had endured. Emily stayed close to Lila, her presence a source of comfort for her friend. Liam watched the scene unfold from a distance, his heart heavy yet hopeful. Claire approached him, her voice low. "They're going to need a lot of help," she said. "I know," Liam replied, his gaze never leaving Emily. "But we'll make sure they get it." He walked over to the two girls, crouching down beside them. "Hey, Lila," he said gently. "My name's Liam. Emily's been helping us a lot. She's a pretty amazing friend, huh?" Lila nodded, her wide eyes filled with gratitude. "She saved us." "You both saved each other?" Liam said with a soft smile. As the day went on, the rescued children began to open up to the officers and social workers. Their stories were heartbreaking, filled with details of forced labor, harsh punishments, and the constant fear of the people who had controlled them. Liam listened intently to every word, his jaw tightening as the reality of what these children had endured sank in. He thought of Emily's quiet strength, the courage it had taken for her to escape and seek help. "She's the reason we were able to do this," he told Claire later. "One little girl changed everything." Claire nodded, her expression solemn. "It makes you wonder how many others are out there, still waiting for someone to save them." Liam's chest tightened at the thought. "We can't stop here," he said firmly. "There's more work to do." That evening, as the station grew quieter, Liam found Emily sitting in a quiet corner, her head resting on Lila's shoulder. Both girls looked exhausted but at peace. "Hey, Emily," Liam said softly, crouching down beside her. She blinked sleepily at him. "Hi. I wanted to tell you how proud I am of you," he said. "You've been so brave through all of this." Emily looked down, her fingers fidgeting with Charlie's warm fur. "I was scared," she admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Liam said gently. "It means you keep going even when you are. And that's exactly what you did." Emily's lips curved into a small smile, the warmth of his words settling over her like a blanket. Over the next few days, the station became a hub of support for the rescued children. Local organizations brought in supplies, clothing, toys, and bedding, while counselors worked tirelessly to help the kids process their trauma. Emily watched as the other children slowly began to relax, their laughter returning in small, hesitant bursts. She stayed close to Lila, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing day. Liam made a point to check on Emily frequently, bringing her small treats and spending time with her whenever he could. One afternoon, he sat with her at a table, a stack of coloring books spread out between them. "Do you think they'll be okay?" Emily asked quietly, glancing at the other children. "I do," Liam said, his tone full of certainty. "It's going to take time, but they'll heal, just like you." Emily nodded, her small hands gripping a blue crayon. For the first time in a long while, she felt a tiny spark of hope, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. One evening, as the station began to wind down, Claire approached Liam with a file in hand. "I thought you'd want to see this," she said, handing it to him. Liam opened the file to find reports of other potential locations linked to the perpetrators they had arrested. The information was detailed and promising. "Looks like we've got more work to do," Claire said. Liam glanced toward Emily, who was sitting with Lila, her laughter a quiet but beautiful sound. "She's changed everything," he said softly. "We wouldn't have known where to start without her." Later that night, as the station grew still, Liam found Emily sitting by herself, staring out a window. He walked over and sat beside her, the silence between them comfortable. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Emily shrugged. "Everything feels different now." Liam nodded. "Different can be scary, but it can also be good." She glanced at him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. "Do you think the bad people will come back?" Liam's expression grew serious. "No, we won't let them. And you have so many people looking out for you now. You're not alone anymore." Emily hesitated before leaning against him, her head resting on his shoulder. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt safe. As the days passed, Emily began to feel more at ease in the police station. The bustling activity, once overwhelming, now felt comforting. The officers treated her with kindness, offering smiles and gentle words whenever they passed. But the one person she gravitated toward the most was Liam. Liam seemed to have an endless supply of patience and warmth. He often sat with her, talking about simple things like his favorite foods or funny moments from his childhood. These conversations helped bridge the gap between Emily's fear of adults and her need for connection. One afternoon, as Emily colored quietly at a table, Liam approached her holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. "Extra marshmallows, just the way you like it," he said, setting one down in front of her. Emily smiled faintly and took a sip. The warmth of the drink spread through her, a small comfort in an unfamiliar world. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice soft but sincere. Bookmark. As they sipped their cocoa, Liam watched Emily closely. He had grown incredibly fond of her in the short time they had spent together. She was brave beyond her years, yet there was a fragility about her that tugged at his heart. "Emily," he said gently, "do you have anyone waiting for you? A family or someone who might be looking for you?" Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around the mug. Finally, she shook her head. "No," she said softly, "there's no one left." Liam felt a pang of sadness. He reached out and placed a hand on the table near hers, his voice steady. "That must feel really lonely," he said. Emily nodded, her eyes welling with tears. "I don't want to be alone again," she whispered. Liam's heart ached at her words. He leaned forward, his voice firm but kind. "You're not alone, Emily," he said. "You have me, and I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, Liam sat in his office, staring at a blank adoption form on his desk. The idea had come to him the night before as he replayed Emily's words in his mind. "I don't want to be alone again." It wasn't a decision he made lightly. Liam knew that taking on the role of a parent would be life-changing, but every time he thought about Emily, her quiet resilience and her shy smiles, it felt right. Claire knocked on the door, interrupting his thoughts. "You okay?" she asked, stepping inside. Liam gestured to the form. "I've been thinking about adopting Emily," he admitted. Claire's eyes widened briefly before a smile spread across her face. "That's a big step," she said, "but honestly, I think you'd be great for her." Liam nodded, his resolve strengthening. "She deserves a real home," he said, "and I want to be the one to give it to her." Later that day, Liam found Emily sitting in her usual spot, coloring quietly. He pulled up a chair beside her, his expression warm but nervous. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his tone light. "Can I ask you something?" Emily looked up, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "How would you feel about staying with me for a while?" Liam asked. Emily's eyes widened. "Really? With you?" Liam nodded. "I've been thinking. I'd like to make it official. It's called adoption. It means I'd be your dad, and you'd live with me." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she stared at him, trying to process his words. You want me?" she asked in a whisper. Liam's heart broke at the question. He reached out and took her small hand in his. "Of course I do, Emily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're an incredible kid, and I'd be lucky to have you in my life." Emily blinked back tears before nodding, a small but genuine smile spreading across her face. "I'd like that," she said softly. Over the following days, Liam began the process of filing for adoption. He filled out stacks of paperwork, met with social workers, and answered countless questions about his readiness to take on the responsibility. Despite the bureaucratic hurdles, Liam's determination never wavered. Every time he looked at Emily, whether she was quietly drawing or laughing with the other children, he knew he was making the right choice. Emily, too, began to feel the difference. Liam's presence in her life brought a sense of stability she had never known. He listened when she spoke, comforted her when she was scared, and celebrated her small victories. One evening, as they sat together reading a story, Emily leaned against Liam's side. "Do you think I'll ever have a real home?" she asked quietly. Liam wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his voice filled with certainty. "You already do," he said, "and it's wherever we are together." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with a feeling she hadn't known in a long time, belonging. The day of the court hearing arrived, bringing a mixture of nervous anticipation and quiet excitement. Emily clung to Liam's hand as they entered the courthouse, her small fingers gripping tightly as though afraid he might disappear. The building felt enormous to Emily, its high ceilings and polished floors making her feel tiny. But with Liam beside her, she took a deep breath and walked forward, her head held a little higher. "You okay?" Liam asked, leaning down to meet her gaze. Emily nodded, though her eyes darted around nervously. "It's going to be a good day," Liam said with a reassuring smile. "By the end of it, we'll be official." Inside the courtroom, a kind-looking judge sat behind a large wooden desk. The room was quiet except for the soft murmur of voices and the faint scratching of pens on paper. Emily sat next to Liam, her feet swinging slightly above the floor as she hugged Charlie, her trusty teddy bear. The judge began to speak, addressing Liam first. "Officer Liam, you've expressed your desire to adopt Emily and become her legal guardian. Is that correct?" Liam sat up straight, his voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor, that's correct." The judge nodded, reviewing the documents in front of him. "And you understand the responsibilities that come with this decision?" Liam glanced at Emily, his expression softening. "I do. She's already a part of my life, and I'm ready to make it official. I want to give her the home she deserves." Emily's heart swelled at his words. She glanced up at Liam, her eyes shining with emotion. The judge turned his attention to Emily, his voice kind. "Emily, would you like to tell me how you feel about this arrangement?" Emily hesitated, her hands tightening around Charlie. She looked up at Liam, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. I want to stay with Liam," she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. "He makes me feel safe. I don't want to be alone anymore." The judge smiled warmly. "That's a very brave thing to say, Emily. Thank you for sharing." The judge reviewed the final papers, his expression thoughtful but kind. After a few moments, he spoke again, his words carrying a sense of gravity and hope. "It is my honor to approve this adoption. From this day forward, Liam, you are officially Emily's father." The words hung in the air for a moment before the room erupted into quiet applause. Emily turned to Liam, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Does that mean you're really my dad now?" she asked. Liam's smile widened, and he pulled her into a tight hug. "That's exactly what it means," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're stuck with me now, kiddo." Emily laughed softly, tears streaming down her cheeks as she hugged him back. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly wanted. As they left the courthouse, Emily was surprised to see a small crowd waiting outside. Many of the police officers who had worked on her case were there, along with some of the social workers and townspeople who had supported her journey. "Surprise," Claire called, holding up a banner that read, "Welcome home, Emily." Emily's face lit up with a smile as she looked at Liam. "Did you know about this?" she asked. Liam chuckled. "Maybe. Just a little." The group cheered as Emily and Liam stepped forward, showering them with hugs and kind words. Someone handed Emily a bouquet of flowers, and she beamed as she held them tightly. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Liam and Emily sat together on a bench outside the courthouse. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. "You know," Liam said thoughtfully, "a lot of people get a middle name or even a new last name when they're adopted. Is that something you'd like?" Emily tilted her head, considering the idea. "Maybe," she said softly. "Can I pick it?" Liam nodded. "Of course, it's your choice." Emily looked up at the sky, the vibrant colors reflecting in her wide eyes. After a moment, she smiled. "I like the name Hope," she said. Liam's heart swelled at her choice. "Hope," he repeated, his voice warm. "It's perfect. Emily, Hope it is." Emily grinned, feeling a sense of pride and belonging she had never known before. As they headed home, Emily rested her head on Liam's shoulder, her eyes heavy with sleep. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere, not just in a house, but in a family. Liam glanced down at her, his heart full. "We're gonna be okay," he whispered. "You and me, kiddo, we've got this." And for the first time, Emily believed him. Emily woke up in her new bed, the morning sunlight streaming through the window onto the colorful walls of her room. The soft blue rug under her feet and the bright yellow curtains made the space feel warm and welcoming. It was so different from anything she had known before, a stark contrast to the cold gray walls of the place she had escaped. She ran her fingers over the bedspread, which was covered in cheerful patterns of stars and moons. For a moment, she wondered if it was all a dream. But then, the sound of Liam's voice calling her from the kitchen grounded her. "Breakfast is ready, Hope," he shouted, using her new middle name with ease. Emily smiled to herself as she hopped out of bed, her teddy bear Charlie tucked under her arm. In the kitchen, Liam was busy flipping pancakes. He had an apron tied around his waist that read "World's Okayest Cook," and the smell of syrup filled the air. "Morning, kiddo," he said with a grin as Emily climbed onto a stool at the counter. "Morning," she replied, her voice still a little shy but filled with warmth. Liam placed a plate of pancakes in front of her, shaped like a smiley face. "Ta-da," he said proudly. Emily giggled. "It's funny looking." "Funny looking and delicious," Liam corrected, winking as he poured her a glass of orange juice. They ate together, the sound of their laughter filling the room. It was a simple moment, but for Emily, it was extraordinary. For the first time, she felt what it was like to wake up in a place that felt safe. After breakfast, Liam showed Emily the backyard. It was small but cozy, with a swing set he had put up the night before. "This is for you," he said. "I figured you might like it." Emily's eyes lit up as she ran to the swing, her laughter echoing as she soared higher and higher. Liam pushed her gently, his heart swelling with pride at the sight of her happiness. "Do you like it?" he asked. "It's the best," Emily exclaimed, her smile wide and genuine. Later that day, the doorbell rang, and Liam opened it to find Claire and a few other officers standing outside. They carried bags of groceries, toys, and books for Emily. "We thought you could use a little housewarming gift," Claire said with a smile. Emily peeked out from behind Liam, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Hi, Hope," Claire said warmly, using her new name. "Can we come in?" Emily nodded shyly, stepping aside as the group entered. They set the bags on the table and began unpacking items, plush animals, art supplies, and even a board game. "This is for you, sweetie," Claire said, handing Emily a soft pink blanket. Emily hugged the blanket tightly, her eyes shining with gratitude. Over the next few weeks, Emily adjusted to her new life with Liam. Each day brought small victories, laughing at one of his silly jokes, helping him cook dinner, or showing him the pictures she drew in her sketchbook. One evening, Liam noticed a new drawing on the fridge. It was a picture of a house with two stick figures standing outside, a tall one labeled Dad and a smaller one labeled Hope. "You drew this?" Liam asked, his voice touched. Emily nodded, her cheeks turning pink. "I love it," he said, pulling her into a gentle hug. "Best picture I've ever seen." Though the days were mostly happy, Emily still had moments where the shadows of her past crept in. Some nights, she would wake up crying from bad dreams, the memories of the dark place still haunting her. When that happened, Liam would sit with her, his presence steady and reassuring. "It's okay, Hope," he'd say, his voice low and calming. "You're safe now. No one can hurt you anymore." Emily would curl up next to him, her breathing slowing as she drifted back to sleep. Liam never left her side, determined to be the stability she needed. One morning, Liam surprised Emily with a new backpack and a set of notebooks. "What's this for?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "School," Liam said with a grin. "You're starting next week." Emily's eyes widened. She had never been to a real school before, and the thought both excited and scared her. "What if I'm not good at it?" she asked, her voice small. Liam knelt down, his hands resting on her shoulders. "You're going to be amazing," he said. "And if you need help, I'll be right here to help you." Emily smiled, her nerves easing slightly. As the weeks turned into months, Liam and Emily settled into a comfortable routine. They spent weekends exploring the park, baking cookies, and watching movies. Each evening they had a small tradition, watching the sunset from the backyard. Sitting side by side on a wooden bench, they would talk about their day and make silly shapes out of the clouds. "That one looks like a dragon," Liam said one evening, pointing to a fluffy cloud. Emily laughed. "No, it's a bunny." Liam squinted. I think you might be right." Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, her laughter fading into a contented sigh. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Liam turned to Emily with a smile. "You know what, Hope?" he said. "What?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I think we make a pretty great team." Emily grinned, nodding. "Yeah, we do." They sat in comfortable silence, the warmth of their bond filling the space between them. Though their journey hadn't been easy, it had brought them to this moment, a moment of peace, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Months passed, and Emily, now officially Hope, began to flourish in her new life. Each day brought new experiences and challenges, but with Liam by her side, she felt braver than ever. Hope's first day of school was one such challenge. Liam walked her to the entrance, his steady presence easing her nerves. "You've got this," he said, crouching down to meet her gaze. "Just be yourself, Hope. Everyone's going to love you." Hope nodded, clutching her new backpack tightly. As the teacher greeted her and led her inside, she glanced back at Liam. He gave her a thumbs up and a wide smile that warmed her heart. "Go back." At first, Hope was quiet and reserved in the classroom, unsure of how to interact with the other kids. But as the weeks went on, her confidence grew. She discovered a love for art, spending hours drawing bright, happy pictures that her teacher displayed proudly on the bulletin board. One afternoon, Hope came home holding a crayon drawing of a rainbow with the words "My Family" written underneath. It showed her and Liam standing in front of their house, both smiling. "This is amazing, Hope," Liam said, hanging it on the fridge next to her other artwork. "You've got real talent." Hope beamed, her heart swelling with pride. As Hope settled into her new life, she began to understand just how much the community had helped her. From the officers who had worked tirelessly on her case to the townspeople who had donated supplies, their kindness had shaped her journey. One day she approached Liam with an idea. "Can we help other kids like me?" she asked, her eyes filled with determination. Liam smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Absolutely. What do you have in mind?" Together, they organized a fundraiser at the local park, gathering donations for organizations that supported children in need. Hope stood proudly beside Liam as they handed out flyers and spoke about their cause. "This is for all the kids who are still waiting for someone to help them," Hope said during her speech. Her words moved the crowd, many of whom had followed her story from the beginning. Hope never forgot her friends from the dark place, especially Lila. The two girls stayed in touch through letters and occasional visits, their bond as strong as ever. On one visit, Lila surprised Hope with a gift, a small bracelet made of colorful beads. "It's a friendship bracelet," Lila explained, "so you'll always remember me." Hope slipped it onto her wrist, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll never forget you," she promised. The two girls spent the afternoon playing in the backyard, their laughter filling the air as they swung on the swings Liam had set up. While Hope's life was filled with new joys, the shadows of her past still lingered. Sometimes, the memories would resurface in the form of nightmares, leaving her shaken and scared. During those times, Liam was always there. He would sit beside her, holding her hand and reminding her of how far she had come. "You're safe now, Hope," he would say softly. "And I'm here, always." Hope found comfort in his words, drawing strength from his unwavering support. Slowly but surely the nightmares became less frequent, and the fear that once gripped her began to fade. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset, Liam turned to Hope with a question. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" he asked. Hope thought for a moment, her brow furrowing in concentration. "I want to help people," she said finally. "Like you do. I want to make sure kids don't have to feel scared or alone." Liam's chest tightened with emotion. "That's a beautiful dream, Hope," he said, his voice thick with pride, "and I have no doubt you'll make it happen." Hope smiled, her gaze fixed on the horizon. For the first time in her life, the future felt like something to look forward to, not something to fear. As the years passed, Hope's bond with Liam only grew stronger. She excelled in school, made new friends, and continued to give back to the community that had embraced her so warmly. Her story became a beacon of hope for others, showing that even in the darkest times, kindness and love could bring light. One day, while sorting through old photographs, Hope found a picture from the day of her adoption. She smiled at the memory, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly, looking up at Liam. He raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For finding me," she said simply. Liam pulled her into a hug, his voice soft. "You found me too, Hope, and I'm so glad you did." As the sun set on another day, Liam and Hope sat together in their favorite spot in the backyard. The colors of the sky mirrored the vibrant hues of their journey, filled with challenges but also immense beauty. Hope leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, her heart full of love and gratitude. "Do you think everything will always be this good?" she asked. Liam smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "I think as long as we're together, it will be." Hope closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words wash over her. For the first time in her life, she felt truly at peace, knowing that no matter what the future held, she would never face it alone. The story of Hope and Officer Liam reminds us of the incredible strength found in courage, kindness, and community. Hope's bravery to seek help and Liam's unwavering dedication to protect her show that even in the darkest moments, a single act of compassion can transform lives. Their journey teaches us that taking the first step toward change, no matter how small, can lead to extraordinary outcomes. It also reminds us of the importance of having someone to trust and the power of people coming together to make a difference. If this story touched your heart, let us know. Press 1 if you found it inspiring, and press 2 if you thought it was amazing. We'd love to hear your own stories of resilience or hope in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more uplifting stories like this one. Together, let's continue to spread kindness and inspiration.